Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host today, Vialet B Rayne, and my guest is Joy Vernon. We've had her on the podcast several times, and her and I have gotten into this routine at the end of the year. She shares her astrology aspects. I do numerology, like what was this year kind of about, what is next year's energies coming in. Joy used to be over Denver Meetup Tarot here in Denver. Now she's moved to Seattle, and she does tarot readings, tarot classes, astrology, all of those things. So I love it when I'm able to get her on and really talk to us. Now, this is my perspective. This year has been filled with lots of shoving, pushing, chaos, lots of energy going on, I feel like. And I think all of us have felt that, like we're being pushed to the cusp of lots of things. And when you look at 2025, that numerology is 9, which is an end of a 9-year cycle, which is a lot about what are we tired of? What do we want to get rid of? What do we want to be done with? What are we? And you can see that everywhere. If you look out there, we're all being kind of shoved and pushed in different directions. Now, you can dig your heels in, right? I'm not changing, but the universe is really trying to push us into moving through this energy. When we look at the year 2026, the other thing to think about in 2025, the Chinese New Year was the snake, which is all about shedding. It's all about getting rid of stuff. So those really aligned really well, and you can feel that chaos. Now, for some people, the Jewish New Year started in September, so they're already feeling the energies of 2026. We're all starting to feel that. It's all already being created. But what is 2026? 2026 is numerology 1, which is all about new beginnings. It's all about new starts. It's all about new perspectives. It's all about bringing new things in. Now, what can happen next year is you can feel a little overwhelmed with choices. It's very important to get very clear. What do you want? What do you desire? What is your focus? You need to be kind of clear on that so that you don't get overwhelmed. I call it the shiny stuff. Have you ever experienced shiny stuff? Oh, that's kind of cool, and that's kind of cool, and yeah, let's try that, and I'd like to do that. This year's going to require you to get really focused and clear, because if you do that, your movement forward is going to be exponential and what you're going to be able to do. And when we look at the Chinese New Year, it's the fire horse, which is all about movement. It's all about let's move forward. Let's take action. This is not a year of procrastination, folks. It's a year of let's get going. And before we started this, I was talking to Joy about this year. For me, my focus was to get a new system online for my business, to really put that system. Now, Spirit's been pushing me for several years. They know that I dig my feet in. It's a lot of work integrating and implementing a new system. And I knew it would take a lot of work and focus. And so the first of the year, I'm like, okay, quit pushing. I get it. And they've been telling me this year, keep going. You got to get this ready, because what's coming next year, you're going to need this system. You're going to need this workflow. You're going to need this process, because lots of new things are coming in for you to get ready for. And it's time to do that. So even just looking at numerology, even just looking at the Chinese New Year and the energy that's coming in, I feel like, and intuitively, I feel like there's something coming next year that we're not aware of, that is really good for us to help us move through this chaos, this energy that we have going. And so now we're going to have Joy share with us what the moons, the planets, astrology is doing. And no, from a personal perspective, it helps to get a reading every year to see what's in your chart and what's happening so that you have an understanding as well. That should be a new year check on every box that you go and have somebody look at your chart and say, okay, what's going to happen next year? Joy, do you agree with that? That it's great to get those new year?
I absolutely do. And some people do it at the new year. Some people do it at their birthday, which is another really nice time to get your chart read. And some people really like more of a quarterly check-in type of thing. But however you want to do it, we can always adjust and accommodate whatever your needs are. So yeah, and you just nailed it, and all of it. It's really astonishing how different systems end up matching up, because we're going from the water snake to the fire horse, and we are literally going from water to fire in astrology as well. And just the idea of going from the 9 to the 10, which is 1, that's a big shift that's showing up in astrology as well. And the most important, now remember, astrology is always about cycles. And whether you're just following the moon cycle and watching the new moon grow and become full and then start to fade away and decline and come back to darkness, to silence, even that is a cycle. And all the planets do that. And the cycle is not just the moon, right? The cycle here is the moon and sun working together. All of the planets have that kind of relationship with any other planet that you want to compare them to. And so one of the big new moon moments that we're going to have is a connection and a coming together into that new moon moment between Saturn and Neptune. Saturn represents our boundaries. It represents endings. It represents determination and strong foundations. And Neptune is the boundless. It is opposite of Saturn. If Saturn is boundaries, Neptune is boundless. If Saturn is strong foundations, Neptune is big dreams. And so those two really opposite planets have been working together in water in Pisces. And come February, they are going to finally join. They've been kind of moving close to each other, but not coming together. They're finally going to join at the 0 point of Aries, the 0 point of the entire zodiac, the fresh start of the yearly cycle of our symbolic life cycle. And so these two opposites, the boundaries and boundless, are going to be at the fresh start point. And so what does that mean? They haven't come together. Those two planets haven't come together in Aries. They come together about every 36 years, but they haven't come together in Aries since 1789. And before that, 1380. So it's a while for them to go through the whole new moon to new moon, so to speak, this new Saturn Neptune combination to another new Saturn Neptune combination. It takes over 300 years for that to happen. And for it to be at the 0 point of the zodiac, that is even more rare. And so the idea of fresh starts, it's like, yes, we are a 1, and yeah, we go through that about every 9 years or so, but where this other cycle is much slower, and so it represents a fresh start on a much grander scale. And the fact that it's those opposites of boundaries and boundless coming together, what happens when it's like matter and antimatter, right? It's like you're going to get an explosion of something new. So that's one of the main themes that we've got going on. Do you want me to touch on the others right away, or do you
Yeah,
want to ask any
please.
questions about that?
No, I love that, because isn't it interesting that the Chinese New Year is February, and that's happening in February, which means it's really a bigger push than most numerology 1 years for us to have some new things. And I think when you think about new things, it can be new projects, it can be a new business, it can be a new job, it can be a new relationship, it can be a new perspective on your spirituality, it can be a new beliefs, it can be new anything. That's where this is coming from. And when you put intention and focus behind that energy, can you see how that's going to push that forward for everyone that's working on that? I think that's so important, that all this stuff is aligning in such an interesting way. And this, for me, I look at 7-year cycles in my life, these 7-year cycles of new things, checking it out, releasing. And it's when I started discover your spiritual gifts, or started thinking about it, and then that was a big new. And so I'm in a new cycle and everything right now. So it's like, okay, what's going on in the chart? So if you've been procrastinating, if you've been putting off things, if you've been dreaming about things but not ever stepped in, if I think about right now too, how many people are displaced from their jobs. This is a great opportunity to think about, is that really what you want to do going forward? Is it something new? Is it an opportunity for you to think about something new, something different for your career, your profession, your life? This is a great opportunity to really sit in that energy and utilize it to your advantage, your benefit, and really moving forward for everyone. It's kind of exciting to think about. When we end next year, it'll be interesting to see what all new things have come into all of our lives just from that process. So, yeah, Joy, share a little bit more about what the year has in store for us.
Well, the next big thing, and we talked about this one last year, Pluto moved into Aquarius. It's been going back and forth across the cusp, and it finally moved in last year in November, about a year ago. Well, from the time we're recording this. And so, but now it's firmly lodged into Aquarius, which is an air sign. And so air is about thinking, it's about ideas, it's about big ideas sometimes. And Pluto is death and rebirth, it's transformation. And so it brings transformation to anything that it touches. It's also intensity and intensifies. That's why we get these really big ideas when Pluto goes through Aquarius. This is a time, well, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was when it's got about a 250-year cycle. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius is when the United States was developing their government system. They developed the Constitution. They elected the first president, George Washington. They established the Bill of Rights. They founded the Treasury. These are all things that happened the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. Big ideas and the transformation of those. If we're going to leave, if we're going to break from Britain, which was what it was at the time, what are the big ideas that are guiding us through this new cycle? And now we are we're bringing all those things into question, it seems like. And so it's an important time to talk about those big ideas and what are the big ideas that will drive us forward. Pluto is also associated with power and control. So that's something else to think about. And how does power and control show up in your life? And what are the healthiest and most wise ways of using that? Because it's very easy to get caught up in just feeling a little bit of power and control and trying to augment that. Now, the thing that's happening this year that is going to be relevant, because Pluto's in Aquarius for 20 years. So this is not something that's just last year, that just this year. This is a 20-year cycle. The thing that's really activating this year is that Jupiter is moving from a water sign, Cancer, into a fire sign, Leo. And so Leo is opposite to Aquarius. And so what happens is Jupiter is the teacher. Jupiter is the leader, the authority. Jupiter is the magistrate. It is the advisor to the king. Jupiter is bringing out, it brings good luck and it brings benefits and generosity to it. So Jupiter is coming in opposite to where Pluto is. And so it's going to start having this engagement, this conversation, and they are opposite to each other. So it's like a tug of war, pulling, one wants to pull this way and the other wants to pull this way. And they're going to be talking about these things this year. So we have our magistrate, our advisor, our teacher, getting really head to head with this energy, saying, okay, you think it should be this, we think it should be this. Now, this is also significant for anybody that was born with Pluto in Leo. And that's roughly people that were born between about 1937 and 1954, I think. Somewhere in there, there's an entire generation of people that were born with Pluto in Leo, because those people are getting a Pluto opposition. And this year, those people born with Pluto in Leo are going to have Jupiter cross over their natal Pluto while being opposite by sign, maybe not by degree, but by sign to our to Pluto in Aquarius. So you might wonder, so what does that mean? It might mean that you get some more wisdom. It might mean that you learn to teach the skills that you have developed throughout a lifetime. There are some things like that sense of advisor. You might become an advisor. But what does it mean on the big scale? Well, guess what? The nation of Israel was established while Pluto was in Leo. Its birth date was during that time period. Pluto was in Leo. So as we get Jupiter going through that sign, it is going to, again, it also can intensify and make things bigger. It usually is a planet of luck and beneficence. So hopefully it will bring just good things. That's what we want to see. But it is going through that place where the nation of Israel has its natal Pluto. And so you can see how this is playing out. You can watch this play out in the world as well as examining how it's playing out in your life. Now that Leo is a fire sign and Aquarius, where Pluto is an air sign, so fire and air. And what do those do? Fire is our excitement, it's our adventure, it's the spark of motivation and energy. And like I said, air is the ideas. And so you can see air feeds fire. You can see how our ideas are sparking our energy, our motivation, and our will to action. So this is very different than what we had previously, which was Pluto in an Earth sign, and this past year included some of Jupiter in Cancer with, I think when it first moved into Cancer, I think Pluto had been retrograded into Capricorn. So some earth and water. But that's also true. So not only is Jupiter going from water to fire, our Saturn and Neptune that we talked about as our first thing, they went from Pisces to Aries, which is water to fire. And our last thing that we're going to talk about is Uranus, which is going from earth to air like Pluto did. So I'm going to stop for a minute and let you add any of your thoughts that you have to that Jupiter Pluto opposition, and then I'll talk about Gemini.
I love that because our year's about new beginnings. It's about movement. And now these big ideas coming in, ideas that maybe we haven't thought about, ideas that may have been percolating for a long time that get that spark to start moving forward. It definitely supports. It'll be interesting to see how the year kind of plays out for everyone. But you got this spark of ideas, this passion coming in. Fire is a lot about passion and excitement and really pushing, getting motivated to go. So I love that. And in our thoughts, what do we want to create? Again, that intention of being very clear on what you want to create next year. What is your desire and your focus? It's going to be super important next year so that you can move through and really create those things that you're hoping to manifest in your life with all that luck too sitting on top of it, right? It's an interesting, could be a very fun, abundant, playful year for the right focus, right? But you also have to understand everything has polarity, right? We have opposite energies all the time in everything. And so you could feel overwhelmed. You could want to isolate yourself and kind of cocoon in. And this is an opportunity for you really to get out and start moving and moving that energy. You don't want to miss the opportunity that's being given to you for next year to really move some things forward. But I can also see people going, wow, that's a lot of energy. Wow, I feel overwhelmed. Wow, I have too many ideas floating through my head. It's just too much. And then they isolate and cocoon in. And you don't want to miss this opportunity that's being presented to you. They really talk about that fire horse. The opposite is that isolation, that stubbornness, that trying to do really quick decisions. These big ideas are coming in, but how do you implement them instead of just jumping into something? How do you create that? Because when they did the Constitution, they didn't do that overnight. It took a lot of work to get there. It was a big idea, but they had to work through the whole process to get it to where it was. So keep all of that in mind as you do this, right? So you're not jumping into something, you're really putting some thought and steps into it. That's the Capricorn in me. I have to be practical with everything.
Brilliant. I love it. I get along with almost all Capricorns. Every once in a while I get one that I just can't make heads or tails of. But as a general rule, Capricorns and I are great together. But you also have Aries rising because I'm an Aries. So that helps us get along well as well. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things to keep in mind that's what's amazing about astrology, right? It's both macro and micro, and you can take it as personal as you need to take it, and you can take it as big and look at the entire world with it. All of those things are relevant from the smallest to the biggest. And one of the things about this Saturn and Neptune coming into Aries, which is fire, and Jupiter moving into Leo, which is fire, that the Aries and Leo, the fire signs, generally have to do with identity. They bring out our independence. They let us come to know who we are. They let us shine our light and be bright in the world. So these are very, very powerful energies for each individual to be able to claim their big idea and shine it into the world. So our last, not the last one, we've got 4 points. I kind of wiggled all my fingers, 4 points that we're gonna talk about. But the third one here is Uranus moving from Taurus, an earth sign, into Gemini, an air sign. So like Pluto, it's going from Earth, which is solid and dependable and practical and firm and it's unchanging, and we're taking that into air, which is again big ideas. Your things are flowing. The need for focus, there's a lot going on. That's a Gemini thing, is lots and lots of ideas. Well, Uranus is the modern ruler for Aquarius, so it already likes its big ideas, and it's the sky god. Uranus is in Greek mythology is the sky god, so it's very airy, it's very big idea, and it's coming in now. When it went through Taurus, that was air and earth, and it was earth shattering because it's literally the story of Uranus and Gaia when it was in Taurus. But now we're moving into Gemini, which is an air sign. So it is going to really activate our ideas, our words, our thoughts, all of this kind of stuff. Uranus brings revolution. It was discovered. It was identified as a planet. It had already been discovered, but it was identified as a planet in our solar system in 1781. So that was right between the American Revolution and the French Revolution. So it's associated with revolution and rebellion. Its orbit is eccentric. It has, like, all the other orbits are like this around the sun, and Uranus goes like this or something. It's like or it turns on its axis. That's what it does. It turns on its axis sideways. And so it's eccentric, and it does things in a weird way. It's innovative. It's kind of that mad scientist energy. And so your innovation, your eccentricities, your unique ways of doing things. And again, it's bringing it into the air energy. So lots of innovative ideas just firing on all cylinders and adding a few more. So this is a really big thing, and because it is trine to Pluto, which it will continue, it has been when they were both in Taurus and Capricorn, and now that they're moving into the air signs, it'll continue to be trine to that, which means they work well together and they support each other and lend each other energy. So already we can see how powerful this is. They're going to be doing that for another couple years here. And so that's a lot of air energy. So I'm going to stop before we go on to our fourth thing.
A lot of thoughts, right? We got a lot of air energy going in. What are our beliefs, our thoughts? What are we thinking? A lot of that energy kind of happen. And it feels very rebellious now. When does that come in for us, Joy? What time of the year next year?
It's in the spring. Let me double check. I've got all my charts pulled up. I think it was in April. Yes. Uranus moves into Gemini on April 25th of 2026.
So that April month.
Yeah. And the thing with Jupiter and Pluto, I think is not until July. Yeah, that's July 20th. So these are, and that was the other interesting thing that I noticed, is that most of the really big things for next year happen early in the first half of the year. I mean, July 20th, but Jupiter moves into Leo in June. So really the first half of the year is is quite big. And one thing that I didn't mention that I did want to, if I had a chance to, this is kind of a secret fifth thing, is that when I love that you mentioned the Jewish New Year starting in September. I have a blog post where I talk about, it's like, who says New Year's is in January? Like, let's look at all these different seasonal New Year's. What happens when New Year's in the spring? What happens when New Year's in the summer? What happens when it's in the fall? And so on and so forth. So you can look at my blog for a discussion of that. But the astrological New Year actually happens on the spring equinox, and so that's March 20th, and that's when the sun moves into 0 Aries. So that's when our astrological year starts, the seasonal year starting with spring. It starts on March 20th every year. But this year, when the sun moves into Aries there, it's going to, first of all, immediately become conjoined with Saturn and Neptune. And so that intensity of that fresh start energy and that independent, individual focused, like, who am I energy is going to be, Aries is a sign, Pisces is a sign of gestation. That's where Saturn and Neptune have been. Aries is a sign of birth. So that's where your new beginnings are. You've gestated, and it's any kind of new beginning, as you mentioned. You've gestated the idea, now you're giving birth to it. And so, but we've got 5 planets that end up there in Aries on that. Let me pull that chart up. Hopefully I have it. I might not have saved that chart. But there were 5 planets in Aries. I'm not sure where I put it. I think I put it in a folder. Let me see if I have that folder. Aries Ingress, here it is. It just takes a minute to pull up. It was Sun, Neptune, Saturn, all together within the first 4 degrees of Aries. Then Venus and the moon towards the middle, towards the kind of end. So that's 5 planets: Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, moon, plus we get Chiron in there. Chiron is the wounded healer, so it brings healing to all of that. So it's, and that also means with the moon in there, it means it's only a day or 2, a day or so past the new moon. So definitely, I've lost my Zoom. I can't find it again. I've got so many windows open.
She's looking at all of her charts. Wow, that's 5 planets. That's got to be a lot of energy, Joy, having those 5 planets in there.
Yeah, so that's another, like, really heavy emphasis. Planets is half the planets. That's a heavy emphasis on that new beginning and coming in to know who we are, what are we born for, what is our purpose, a lot of that type of energy.
Wow. Wow, this year's going to be really powerful. Can you see it already? It's like they all aligned like perfectly to bring in all this energy and to give us the support that we need if we're aware of it and we're really paying attention. You had one more that you wanted to share with us, the energy that's coming in. Talk to us about what the 5th one is.
All right. So, of course, everything that we've said, and you can feel the energy, right? When we're talking, when both of us are talking, it's like fire and air just really brings out so much energy with people. The last thing we're going to talk about is Mercury and Mercury retrogrades. And so we know that Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. And this year, 2025, this past year, it had been retrograded. It goes into an fire sign and retrogrades back into a water sign. So that, like, starts our fire, which is our will and our motivation and our impetus, and then takes it back into water, which is our thinking and dreaming, not thinking, but our emotions, our dreaming, our imagining, our intuition. That's been 2025. 2026, all three Mercury retrogrades in the water signs. So there will be a Mercury retrograde in each one of them, in Cancer and Scorpio and Pisces. And they'll be completely in the water sign. There won't be a crossover between water and air or fire and water, anything like that. So the big question is, with all of this fire and air energy, and having like literally crawled out of the water onto this fresh start of ideas, I think it's really helpful that our Mercury retrogrades, because retro makes us go backwards, and so retro has us rethink, reconsider, reevaluate. And so Mercury in those water signs is going to give us a chance 3 times this year to say, I need to contemplate and meditate and imagine and intuit what the purpose of these big ideas and this strong will towards action. What is the purpose of that, and what's the long-term potential of these things? And that is going to be so useful for not going overboard on the fire and air, and for bringing it back into our hearts and back into our intuition, and letting our emotions reminding us that our emotions have to play into this. Are the big ideas that I have, how are they affecting people emotionally? How are they affecting the heart of people? And as long as we can love those Mercury retrogrades and use them to dream and to imagine and to explore our emotions, I think this is going to be a really amazing and productive year.
When are those retrogrades? Do you know when they're happening? I asked the tough questions. You knew I was going to ask that. What the tough
so
questions?
I have that one. That one's pulled up right here.
Okay.
The first one is from February 25th to March 20th.
Okay.
That's Mercury retrograde in Pisces. The second one is from June 29th to July 23rd. That is Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And then the last one is from October 24th to November 13th. These are all 2026 dates, and that is your Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. Remember, and this is really important that people remember this, those Mercury retrograde, the dates that I give you is the actual time that Mercury is going up, apparent from our position on Earth is appearing to go backwards through the zodiac. There is a period of leading up to it, and there's a period afterwards that actually can be just as intense as a Mercury retrograde itself. So when people are like, Mercury goes direct today, that's not a fabulous day to do anything Mercury related. So ignore those things. When you see those come up all across your social media and all through your inbox with every newsletter from every astrologer you subscribe to, yay, Mercury is direct today. No, just still hold your horses, hold your fire horse, breathe, and let Mercury start to get up to speed again. It'll take them a few days before you start to engage in those Mercury things. If it's a big Mercury thing, you might want to wait even a little bit longer till it's out from under the shadow. Then again, when Mercury's during the middle of the retrograde period, Mercury is actually moving at a pretty good pace, and that's not a bad time to do Mercury things. And so there's a lot more to Mercury retrogrades than, oh no, Mercury retrograde is bad, and oh, Mercury direct is good. It's not like that at all.
Well, it sounds like for 2026, it's about really settling into what does your heart want. It's a heart-based type thing because it's all this water energy and really being aware of emotionally where you're at, what you're doing, how it fits, does it align, does it work? For those listening that probably have never thought about Mercury retrograde, when we talk about Mercury things, what are we talking about when people are talking about this is the time to do Mercury things? What does that mean?
Absolutely. Mercury is it's a messenger of the gods, right? And so Mercury represents messages, it represents communication. Mercury is associated with Hermes, which is, if you think of the FTD flowers, their logo is the little guy with the winged shoes and the winged hat. He's delivering the flowers. That's Mercury. He's making your deliveries for you. Mercury, you can think of the word merc, that comes up in merchant and commerce. Mercury rules commerce, and if you're buying things or if you are selling things, Mercury will govern that. It governs travel because it goes, Mercury, the god, goes up to the Mount Olympus and the abode of the gods. It goes down to the realm of humans, and it goes down into the underworld. It's allowed access, Mercury is allowed access to all three of those dimensions, which the other gods are not. So it governs travel, and it things that are if you look, we don't have them in the US, but if you watch TV shows that are set in England, you'll see when you get to a crossroads, you'll see a rock that has, maybe it might say 15 miles to this or something like that. Or it just might be a plain rock at a crossroads. Sometimes it's a rock with a human face carved into it. Those are called Herms, after Hermes, and they guide travelers. So it is a guide for travelers. Mercury is associated with Thoth, so it's the scribe to the gods, and the note taker and the writer, but it's also the god of magic. So there are a lot of things that are covered by Mercury. In technology, those are the things that we anticipate going wrong. Communication, they say don't sign contracts. I've signed contracts when Mercury was retrograde and had nothing went wrong. And you just have to be aware and understand what's important and what's not important and what's valuable and what might go wrong and what you're willing to live with and what you can't tolerate when you're making your decisions around these things. So those are some of the things that Mercury, how Mercury shows up. And it depends whether it's going to hit you hard, depends on a lot of things in your natal chart as well. And so that's another reason to, if Mercury retrograde seems, every time people start talking about it, you're like, wow, I'm having a really bad time right now. That's another time to consult an astrologer, because there's a lot more to it than just that. And whether it's hitting something in your chart is going to be really relevant.
I love that. I love that. I've learned a lot today. I always learn a lot when I hang out with Joy. Makes me very happy. We like doing this at the end of the year and sharing this information with our community, our students, because I think it's very powerful. You know, for me, I do sacred candles at the end of the year, big classes of people making candles of intention for their year. And I love talking about, what is the year about? What is your numerology? Where are you in your cycle? Blah, 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 blah. Where is the universe in its cycle? Now, I'm not the astrology guru. I don't add that. But that's why we have Joy here to kind of help us through. But I think it's always good as we get to the fall of really reflecting and thinking about what has happened this year. what went right, what went wrong, what do we need to release, and what do we want to bring in the next year. I think that's really critical to be very conscious of your life and make intuitive decisions where you're the driver of the bus instead of just riding in the back seat. I think that makes a huge difference in how your life turns out, right? So I love it when Joy comes and shares her wisdom of the stars and planets and all of that with us. So thank you so much for taking a time today, Joy.
Absolutely. I absolutely love talking to you. I love doing this year ahead look, and it's just super, super fun to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me, and always look forward to our next time together.
I do too. We learned so much from each other. She used to live here in Denver, so I could actually see her, but now she lives in Seattle. When she comes in, everybody wants to see her so badly that I don't get on that list typically, and our schedules are so busy. She'll be like, "Yeah, I was there. I got no time for me because everybody wanted to see you, huh?" I love that though.
Sometimes it feels that way, that's for sure.
They're like, Joy's
Yeah,
in town.
yeah.
Let's go see Joy, right?
I'm
I
not
love
I'm
that.
not there as often as I would like. That's true.
Well, and you can tell she's deeply missed here in town. And so when she comes back, everybody wants to connect and see her, of course, right? Because she's back in. And so there's just not enough time in a day to get everyone in that you would love to see. So I
It's
get
hard.
that
Yeah.
totally. So get that. But we're
Yeah.
blessed to be able to have you on the podcast and to be able to connect this way. So then you don't feel so far away.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and I mean, you're just so wonderful, Violet. I can't believe that we really have gotten to know each other the best through this podcast. And I just have to say how glad I am to have connected with you, because you and we just are so good together. I feel like we're just so fun, so fun. And match each other. We work with each other. We have different approaches in just that perfect way that really blends and connects us. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And I will say one thing, you've heaped all this praise on me, and so I'm like, but I do want to say we looked at I do want to say to everybody out there, we looked at Violet's chart. I remembered she had some Aquarius placements. We looked at her chart before we started. And one of the things I remember, I mentioned that Uranus is going into Gemini, Pluto's in Aquarius. Violet's Jupiter, which is her authority, her leadership, and her teaching, her wisdom, is in Aquarius. So she is a big idea teacher. And Pluto is going across that. Uranus is going to be trining that, which again is that very supportive energy. And that Neptune in Aries, it makes a little triangle, like a little triangle from Neptune to Pluto, from Neptune to Uranus, and a longer line from Uranus to Pluto. Makes a little triangle there. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. Uranus is the Fool in tarot, and it's the element air. Neptune is the Hanged Man in tarot, it's the element water. And Pluto is the Judgment card in tarot, it's the element fire. These are also the three mother letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And so they are the source of everything. And those three planets are coming together. They have been together. They will continue to be together in this little triangle for a couple more years, activating. We've got all this new energy, and they are mother letters. They are activating and spawning and reproducing, and they're going over Violet's planet of authority, wisdom, and teaching. So I'm just really excited to see how she evolves even beyond where she already is over the next year or two.
Oh, I love that. I love that. For those that don't know, Joy and I never met when she was here in Denver. And after she left Seattle, I reached out. Somebody reached out. I can't remember. I think it might have been, who knows, and said, "Hey, do you want to be on the podcast?" We knew of each other. We have a reputation here in Denver. So we both knew of the other person, but we had never physically met each other. And we have connected multiple times on this podcast and had so much fun. We're like, when we lived there, we kind of crossed paths, going opposite directions, but never really connected with each other. So it's been an amazing journey of being able to get to know her and connect with her. And so I've loved every minute of it. So thank you so much for keep coming back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Violet. I love doing this, and I had a great, great time today.
So those of you listening, here's your action items. I'm the Capricorn. Remember, I'm going to bring this down into practical knowledge. What are your intentions for 2026? Get very, very clear. Don't sit on the couch next year. It's time to take action. So what are you going to do to move those ideas, those big big dreams and desires? How are you going to move those forward? What's your commitment to do that? And then I would really recommend sitting down with an astrologer, one that you trust, whether it's Joy or somebody else, and having them look at your chart next year to really give you that extra support on what do you need to be thinking about, where are you in all these cycles personally, so that you can get a perspective, because I feel like next year is going to be super important for all of us, for our world out there, as well as our personal lives, that so I'm going to the big picture, the little picture, I'm going to go that way. It's going to be really, really important on how we see the world and how it looks out there. So it'll be interesting next year at the end of the year when we talk about, wow, this was a year, right? I'm hoping that's the case, and that we see lots of things happen for all of us, that we all get blessed. But thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being open. I hope that you will like, comment, and follow us on your favorite channels. That helps us reach out. Please also share this podcast with friends, community, whoever out there that might benefit from listening to this. Please share that. Let people know that we're here. I hope that you have a sacred and magical week and day. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. It was really a pleasure to be able to share ourselves with you. And I hope that we'll see you again really soon on another show.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.